definitely. So
Yeah.
So obviously there are some challenges around things like data, existing processes, maybe cultural, kind of lack of desire to change. What other challenges do you see for within procurement teams, within businesses that are stopping them from moving forward with, trying to transforming their procurement function?
Okay. I might not make a couple of people happy with my comments on this one. So everyone's been forewarned on this. I think the largest challenge is leadership within procurement.
Right.
And kind of, I don't want to call it old school, but maybe stuck in your ways, stuck in the past. Like there's been so much change within procurement. It's almost hard to get your head around. So I feel for these leaders. They're not bad people or anything like that. It's just that so much has changed. It's just trying to get your head around it so that you can think strategically about how you want to move forward. So I think there's a huge blocker here. And I'm going to use an example, and I like to use this example a lot. If you were to guess how many invoices are sent to businesses electronically, what do you think that percentage is?
Invoices that are sent to businesses electronically.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think it's in the kind of 50 to 75%, but you're probably gonna tell me that it's far lower than that. I'm gonna guess it's probably somewhere between.
Yeah, globally 30%. Okay. Now here's the thing. We've been working on e-invoicing since I started in my career, and probably before that, right? That was one of the lowest hanging fruit when you talked about digitalizing procurement. It was trying to get your invoices electronically. I don't think that's a technology issue. I think that's a willingness to adopt the technology issue from a leadership standpoint.
I think you're right. And you know what? It reminds me of a panel discussion I saw at a procurement conference last year. I think it was early last year, maybe. And there were people from pretty large organizations. And there was one person in particular who was talking about the importance of this transformation. And it amazed me that some of these other senior leaders were kind of saying, well, it's not all it's cracked up to be. You know, there's the good old stuff that we always should have done and need to stick to. And one of the things that really jumped out to me was, how on earth, if you're one of those procurement organizations that's stuck in the past, how on earth are you going to recruit good people? Because they're going to come in and go, okay, so I'm a young person who's used to using tech in everything that I do in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And you're coming in here and you're asking me to work with these archaic processes. Good luck retaining those people.
No, yeah. Well, so I'll give you an actual story about that. That was one of the driving factors of the transformation that we did at MGM, because we were actually using an AS400 green screen to purchase items.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So you get a new college grad that we spent so much time and effort. I mean, we had wonderful programs developing relationships with universities and getting like the top talent to come into the organization. And then we would turn around and sit them down and say, you need to learn all these codes to do what you need to do. Like all these transaction codes and all this stuff. And they're like, well, I've never seen a green screen before. And they would be completely confused and frustrated. And so that was a challenge. Like we would bring all these wonderful people in and then give them a technology that just didn't meet the needs. So that was a huge driving force behind the change that we did at MGM. So anyway, it was pretty funny. I remember just sitting there looking at these kids like they were going to have like no idea what to do. I didn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's a large challenge. Things are changing so quickly for the leaders to get their heads around, like how do we want to reimagine procurement and do this effectively and truly buy into that the technology is an enabler of their success, and to be open to those new ideas, because there's so many new ideas out there, and procure tech is just vastly complicated now because there's all kinds of different options out there. But to be open to the possibilities and explore, there will be a solution out there that can solve for a problem that a procurement leader is having today. So
100%.
That's number one. The other problem that I see is that procurement is still, and I don't know if it's because of a lack of technology investment previously or the increase of work level, but everyone that I talk to within procurement is overwhelmed today. Like I haven't met a procurement person that's not overwhelmed in a very long time. And when you're getting into that overwhelmed state, do you have time to think? Do you have time to strategize? Or are you just reacting to the day-to-day that's coming in like fire every single day? And so I think there's a large, it's not a distraction, but it's hard to be focused on what the future looks like because the day-to-day is just so overwhelming for procurement professionals. And I don't see that slowing down. I mean, the risk alone, supply chain worries, inflation worries, geopolitical issues going on across the globe, climate and all of that firing in. I mean, I don't see this slowing down. So it's going to be foundational for those leaders who are in charge of those organizations to really be strategic about where they're spending their time and how they're carving out enough time to focus on the future and what their organization is really going to be able to accomplish through what they have today and additional investments that they might need to make in the future.
Do you think that's in any way a lack of investment from organizations in their procurement teams?
Yeah, I mean, I hear all the time, yeah, we're being asked to do more with less or more with what we have today. And like leaders have used the words like being piled onto, like we just are getting piled on with work, but we're not getting the investment. Sometimes I think that's a lack of ability to influence in the organization. So procurement has created a lot of value in the past several years in just managing the supply chain crisis alone. But how are we promoting that? How are we showing that back up to leaders? How are we building our story around that? Even like, I think procurement professionals would benefit from being trained on how to pitch ideas. Because I know, just speaking from experience from being a procurement professional and then going into sales, my eyes were completely opened around how much skill I was lacking in procurement versus the skills that I could have. So it's my personal journey, but I think a lot of procurement leaders are probably in that same boat. Like we're in procurement because we're not marketers. You know, we're in procurement because we're not salespeople. But I think procurement would benefit a lot from learning those skills so that we can promote our organizations and get the investments that we need.
Yeah, because otherwise it's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it? I mean, if a procurement function is highly digital and has a huge amount of data at their command, then that suddenly gives them a lot of power. You know, the CFO, the C-suite in general are going to be very interested in what that data is telling the organization and how they can use it to mitigate risks, you reduce costs, increase value and all this sort of stuff. So getting to the point of being able to bring those insights to bear, it's a point that people have got to get to. The change makers within procurement teams, like you say, they need to be able to put that pitch together to get somebody to take the risk on them.
Yeah. So what you just said is exactly right. So I tell leaders all the time, it's not about you, it's about them. So when you go into a CFO's office, they're going to want to hear what you just said. What they're not going to want to hear is, I need a spend analytics tool.
Yeah.
Right. It's a completely different story. And what really, at the end of the day, what does spend analytics get you? I would argue that that's a very limited view of what you need a view on. But what you just talked about was the value to the company, the insights that you could drive. You could even commercialize that at a certain extent if there's a way in the marketplace to leverage that data to offer a new line of business in your organization. I mean, the possibilities are really awesome if you think about it, of where you could go with that. But that's selling to a CFO about the business impact versus trying to talk about what we need in procurement.